Hello.
It's good to see you.
Yes. Yes.
I don't want to be rude, but would it be okay if I...
Oh, yes, of course. Please come in. I just never thought you'd, I have guests here. This is my first time. I don't know what I'm doing.
Rabbi.
You already know these men?
They are students of mine. I trust they have been polite.
Of course.
Your guests can take the seat. Yes, Mary?
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. Please have a seat. I keep saying of course a lot. Francis is the man I told you about who helped me.
Oh, yes, yeah. Mary told us so much about you.
Oh, I hope not too much.
I'm Barnaby. This is Shula. She is blind.
In case you couldn't tell.
I'm so sorry. I don't actually know your name.
I'm Jesus of Nazareth.
Well, apparently something good can come from Nazareth. What?
Mary, I'm honored to be here. Why don't you begin?
Oh, no, I couldn't now that you are here. You must.
Thank you, but this is your home, and I would love for you to do it.
Okay. I'll just read from this now. Now the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their hosts. And God completed on the seventh day his work that he did. And God abstained on the seventh day from all the work he did. And God blessed the seventh day, and he hallowed it, for thereon he abstained from all the work that God created to do.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Life After Neverland. My name is Corinne, and this is, if you're the first time joining us, this is our second week of our Chosen Season 1 Bible study. So we're on week 2, and I'm so grateful for those of you that joined me last week. I felt wonderful about it, so thank you so much for being so patient. We had so many technological issues, and nothing went as planned. Absolutely nothing. That's usually the name of the game, but those of you that pop back in later, I greatly appreciate your commitment to this and what I'm trying to do here. Thank you so much. And those of you that might be joining me right now, I hope you'll go back and watch what we did last week and continue to join us. My goal here is to get through all of Season 1 Bible study in conjunction, obviously, with The Chosen here, and learn more, get closer to God through our favorite TV show. So if you're a Chosen fan, you're in the right place here, because we're going to be talking about The Chosen and just really dive in much deeper than we do when we're watching the episode itself. But my other goal is to do Season 2 and Season 3, so I want to continue going, and I hope you'll join me. Something else that I want to do is take you around my community, so you have some beautiful background to look at and get to see, some fun places in Florida, parks, of course, beautiful scenery that you might not have seen otherwise. And then also too, I like to pre-record my live, so that way I can go on the comment section and actually speak with you and read your comments and interact with you in the comments section. So it will be pre-recorded, so we're pre-recording right now. That way I can actually look at your comments. If I was doing it physically live, it would be almost impossible for me to interact with you. So come and join me. It's gonna be fun. So how about we get started? So if you haven't purchased the Chosen Bible study, I would love it if you would, because we can go through the questions together. They've got some amazing probing questions that really match up with the Bible. Like I said, diving in a bit deeper with the TV show. And so we're starting with episode 2, lesson 2, and it starts off saying, what does it mean to be chosen? And what a positive message it starts off with, and I'm going to read it to you. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you. Isaiah 43:2. I love that because there are so many things that we're all dealing with in this day and age, so much going on. Wars, rumors of wars, disease, the fear looming in the future about more pestilence and famine. It's just out of control. And so I love this message because it's very encouraging. A big sense of breath I want to take after reading that. That's exactly how I feel after reading that. And forgive me because my camera might be wobbling a little bit. It's quite windy today and you might hear some wind, you guys. So thank you so much for your patience. I am going to get a special device that will assist with some of that extra noise in the background. So just be patient with me. I should have it by next week. So I do want to talk about Mary preparing the Shabbat dinner, which is really special in my eyes, especially where Mary came from in episode 1. But I do want to talk just briefly about Mary's interaction with Jesus in episode 1, when she was sitting at the bar and she was desperately asking for another alcoholic beverage in order to numb her pain, and Jesus put his hand on hers. I mean, she had never seen him before, they had never met, and he basically was saying to her, you don't need that. And I love that because, you know, I'm guilty of this, and I feel like a lot of us are in many different ways of our life, where we just want the stress, the feeling of being overwhelmed, the hurt, the pain. We just want it to stop, and it can really consume you. And in that episode, it was to the highest level possible, to the point where Mary wanted to commit suicide, is the level of desperation that she was at in her life. You know, it really got me to thinking that it's a way of just retraining your brain. You know, unfortunately at this moment in time, we don't physically have Jesus putting his hand on us and showing up in our time of desperation and complete and utter. I mean, none of us want to be in that state. None of us want to even admit that we've been in that state. Because when you go to that place, when life pushes you to that place, you kind of aren't yourself anymore at that point. It's kind of like you just walked out the door and it's just a shell of yourself at that point. I don't know if any of you know what I'm talking about. And then once you start relying on something else to get you through, it's so hard to retrain your body and your mind to not reach for that any longer. I mean, we're such physical beings, and even more so in this day and age, such instant gratification type of people, you know, creatures. You know, everything is, I want it now and I can't wait. This waiting is just it's too long for me. I mean, even if you're just driving along in the road, people are always honking at you, flipping their hands up and usually giving you vulgar, you know, signals and stuff. I mean, this is the world that we live in. And so it's hard to train your mind to think that this is just temporary, to tell yourself this is just temporary. My pain, all of the hurt, it's still going to exist. It's still going to be there once that instant gratification is done and over with and it's subsided. But what I love what we start to see is that Jesus is making Mary anew. And her new life, the new person that she's now kind of trying to be and attempting to be and being courageous to be, is something that she's not comfortable in her own skin about. And I really like that they showed that about Mary, because that's kind of what it happens when you're stepping into something that's uncharted territory. And you saw that Jesus, when he came to the Shabbat, he was so reassuring, so encouraging, compassionate, and truly just so supportive of her. And isn't it so amazing? Because sometimes I think I'm so blessed to have my husband because he's like that, but not very many of us have people like that in our life who's understanding about the fact that she was literally going through something. A life-threatening situation was going and stirring inside of her soul. She felt alone and she didn't feel like she had anyone that was going to be there for her. Now here she is being so courageous and doing something that is so unfamiliar to her. And you can tell because she's saying and she's apologizing, and I love Jesus's reaction to her. It's absolutely precious and heartwarming. On a brief side note, I love it when Jesus says that he's from Nazareth, and then Barnaby says, well, apparently something good can come out of Nazareth, and then everybody was silent. But what I loved is that Jesus had a sense of humor about it. Another thing I enjoy about The Chosen, and what I love about their writing and the directing and all of that, and of course he just kind of winked at Barnaby, you know, he has a sense of humor, and and he understands that maybe Barnaby was uncomfortable in that moment, and he just spews out something and is like, oops, I just stuck my foot in my mouth. I don't know, I just love that. I love that part. Woo, it is so windy here, you guys. I'm really loving it. The weather is so amazingly beautiful. I want to take advantage of it because it's usually extremely humid here and I'm always melting. So I'm taking advantage of this. So thank you for being patient if you're hearing a lot of wind, because it is windy. So if you go on page 45, I want to read the whole thing to you because I like all of it. See if any of this sounds familiar to you. Shabbat. Typically we equate sleep with rest. While our eyes are open, we go 100 miles an hour, often measuring the value of our days by how much we can accomplish. Sound familiar, everybody? All too familiar for me. Good days are busy ones, full of going, seeing, doing, exploring, conquering, and completing. And then at night, when we're no longer physically capable of doing all of the things, we stop for a moment to rest. Shabbat is the title of the season 1, episode 2 of The Chosen, and the Hebrew translation of the word Shabbat, which means to cease from work, because as the 4th commandment states, remember the Shabbat day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the 7th day is the Shabbat to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant or your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and then rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Shabbat day and made it holy. And that is Exodus 28 through 11. So the Shabbat was and is a day of communal observance that God's people do together, primarily marked by abstinence from work. Though that's not all that it's about, having a day off each week is a perk for sure. And this is my favorite part, God built it into his system because he's gracious to his creation and intimately in tune with our needs. We need a day off to hit the reset button, to attend church, and to spend time with people we love. I'm going to say the part that I loved one more time. God built it into his system because he's gracious to his creation and intimately in tune with our needs. Intimately in tune with our needs. So that for me personally, you guys, I'd love for you to make some comments and let me know what you're struggling with right now. I struggle with that in the highest way, okay? And the biggest, this is my biggest problem. I work pretty much all day long, and then when it's time to go to bed, I don't really leave a lot of time for fun. I get very frustrated when I don't have enough time with my family. I don't have enough time with my husband. I don't have enough time with my animals. And sometimes life, even more so, I get frustrated when I can't spend more time with the Lord. But what I wanted to say is that because I have such a hard time finding that balance, I get very frustrated and overwhelmed in almost every single day of my life. And yet I still keep hitting my head up against the wall. Yeah. How do I get out of this internal hell? Seriously. Because I tend to think that I'm not successful in my day if I haven't accomplished everything on my list and I put way too much on my list in the first place. Okay, so moving on to page 46. Now, I might not cover every single question, but I'm going to cover most of them. So I'm going to skip that question because it's self-explanatory, I feel like. Okay, but if you have the book, of course, if there's something that I don't cover, I surely do hope you cover those questions on your own, answer those questions on your own. But I do want to read to you this next portion. It's the Old Testament context, and it says, when God rescued the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, he guided them into the wilderness under the leadership of Moses. And you remember the Pharaoh, he chased them to the edge of the Red Sea, where God opened the waters, allowing the Israelites to cross on the dry land. And when the Pharaoh and his army pursued, God released the waters, crushing the entire Egyptian army and ensuring Israel's future freedom. I remember when I was a little girl, my parents did have that movie on, and I remember seeing that, and I felt like that was really tragic because just as a little girl seeing it, because I kept thinking about the horses. What did they do? They didn't do anything bad. Why do the horses have to die? I was so frustrated about that. I missed the message completely. Now this part makes me think of some of the things that we have looming in front of us here that doesn't really make our future feel so fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to read this and I want you to think about things that are ahead, looming ahead, that might be worrying you or stressing you out or making you feel a little bit helpless. But then came the wilderness on the other side. God told the Israelites they would be led to a promised land flowing with milk and honey. But they didn't know the way or how far a walk it was. Instead, all they saw were the impossible things that were in front of them. For example, the heat, the dust, the distance, no shade, no food supply, and very little water. And then there were the impossible things on the other side of the wilderness. Land that was already conquered or inhabited, which meant more kings, more armies, and more